Welcome, everyone, to the Nerd Journey Podcast, episode number 53. We're joining you every week to talk IT career progression and bring you the advice we wish we'd been given earlier on in our careers. I'm your host, John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, joined by my co-host, Nick Cordy, at NetworkNerd_. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
John, I'm doing great. I've just consumed a large cup of coffee as usual. But to let the listeners know, we are VMware solution engineers with backgrounds in IT operations. We hope our career discussions will be vendor neutral, relevant across disciplines, and remain timeless. If you're enjoying our content, please drop us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with us, tweet or DM at Nerd Journey. Ultimately, we're just two nerds on a journey.
A journey to virtual enlightenment.
So let's take a trip.
Great, Nick. I like our choices that we're making. We're making strong choices when it comes to doing that intro.
Absolutely, trying to. Yeah, we had some fun before we hit record. We were both kind of in awe looking at Adrian Cockcroft's book recommendation list on Amazon that I got from DevOps Days Dallas. Kind of made me want to order all those on the Audible as soon as possible. But
yeah, I only have 6 credits.
Yeah, I only get 2 a month, and that seems to be okay. I mean, I don't want to pay any more than I already am to listen to more books. If I could get unlimited books for the same price, I would totally do it.
It's always interesting to look at somebody's reading list. It's like I'm always scared for people to look at my bookshelf because it's like showing them what my brain looks like. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Like the thing that's shaped my thinking the most is the books that I've read. And I guess the people that I've been around. So, it's just such a big thing. And it's fascinating to see somebody else's bookshelf. Sometimes when I visit somebody, like the first 30 minutes, it's very difficult to resist spending the first 30 minutes, like just looking at their bookshelves.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, these books can change your mindset in what we might call unexpected ways. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I saw an interview with Mike Tyson, of all people, and he was, I think, just getting out of prison. And he said, you have to be careful what you read because those ideas get inside you. And I laughed at the time, but the older I get, the more I think that that's very, very true. Like you can be convinced and change as a person based on the power of the written word, So anyway, let's get to our topic today. We are talking about preparing for unexpected career opportunities. And in true Nerd Journey fashion, this is going to be part 1 of, we're not sure how many, 2, maybe 3 episodes. So this is kind of how we're going to structure it. We're going to talk about the things that you need to do to be ready, namely keeping your resume current and keeping your network healthy. And then the actual, different scenarios that you would see for unexpected opportunities, and then how to prepare for each. Like I think we're probably going to spend more time on one of them than the others, but ultimately that is the structure for today. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Excellent. So the first point that we're going to talk about, getting in the routine of keeping your resume current. I think that we've talked a lot about this before. The idea of the kitchen sink resume, which is kind of everything that you've done over your entire career. And I think that it's really important to go back and add to that on a regular basis, especially when major milestones have been accomplished and you have something important to add, right? But that is kind of like, a lot, more than people might think. If you take on a project, just hitting a milestone in a project, you probably want to add that milestone hit, to your resume. If you, finish a project, if you accomplish something major, if you win an award, all of those things should probably go into that kitchen sink resume. They're not always relevant to every job that you apply for or every job that you want, but there's enough different careers out there and different jobs that you probably could do that, having each of those things in the kitchen sink resume is really important to then tune for that job specific resume, that you turn in. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Nick.
It absolutely does. And I think that a lot of people are doing this a little bit already, except they may wait until right before their yearly review, which we sometimes associate or don't associate with the pay raise, to say, here are all the things I accomplished. You may not have been keeping track of them real well along the way. I know that's happened to me a number of times. What did I accomplish this year? What did I accomplish this quarter? Why haven't I been tracking it like I should?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And it's an easy trap to fall into. Um, so actually, I have some specific advice about that, and that is kind of like an annual goal setting exercise. Your company may or may not have like an official way to like set professional goals for your job, for job functions, or just maybe like peripherally related job functions. So, regardless of whether there's an official like company supported way to do this, you should do this and write it down, record the different things that you want to do. For example, I take part in the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. So I actually have, a goal of doing that and then bringing back a certain number of ideas from that podcast to the sales team as a whole that I belong to. So I do that. And then, I also have like a goal of going out and reaching out to community members a certain number of times a year, and then maybe going on recruiting trips a certain number of times a year. So each one of those things is peripherally related. It's not directly job related. Obviously, my main job metrics are already being measured. So I have these like goals of these other things that I want to do, and they're just ideas, right? It could be things that come up later on, and I say, oh, this should be something that I measure, the frequency that I'm doing this. So then I'll just add it to kind of my annual goals. Or if there's something that just falls by the wayside, or doesn't seem that important, then I'll take that off. So anyway, you have those things, kind of goals that you can revisit on a monthly basis, for example, and say, well, what have I done, you know to meet some of these goals? And so you can immediately have ideas about things that you should add to your resume. So, that's one way to do it.
So don't go into it now, but let's write this down. Future topic, the process that you use to set those goals, how much input you got from your manager, all those things for a future topic. And everybody out there who's listening, hold us accountable for doing that. So just move on to the next point.
Absolutely. So, goal setting as a future topic. Terrific. Yeah. So each one of those things, as you write it down within and update your resume, try to have that as a metric, and then as a measurement. So I wanted to do this thing. I was able to do it, 5 times in calendar year 2019. To this effect. Right. So have a metric, have something that was measurable about it, and then a measurable effect. That's kind of good goal setting, right? So because you have those things, and you have them, those goals, and you have them recorded, you have at least some beginnings of ideas of things that you can update your resume with. Now other things might come up, and as they come up, you should just have like a quick and easy way to record them, and then kind of do that on a monthly basis, or bi-weekly basis, whatever is more comfortable for you. But what it shouldn't be is an annual basis, right? At the very least, you should be doing these updates within your resume, or whatever record system you have, and then validating them with your immediate manager. So your manager knows the things that you're doing, how they you've set these goals, and how you've accomplished them throughout the year. So that is a great process for the annual review process, because you've been talking about them at the very least 12 times since your last annual review. So when you do that annual review, nothing's a surprise, right? And it serves this like actual primary goal of keeping your kitchen sink resume up to date, just in case you have one of these unexpected career opportunities. So I think we kind of touched on the idea of frequency of updates. I would say at least monthly. If you let it go longer than a month, then things just leave your brain, right? So I try to kind of do like a weekly wrap up, of the stuff that I've accomplished in any given week. jot some notes down. I don't need to do that update every week, but I have a record of the things that I feel like I've accomplished. And then at least once a month, I actually look at my goals and see what in those notes correlated to those goals, or if I need to add a new goal or just have a point that's outside of those initial goals.
And how long does that normally take you, John? Per week or per month? I assume it's fairly short, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about maximum of an hour a month,
Okay.
right? Yeah, because you don't need to have it in perfect resume language. It's like, here was the goal, here's what I did towards it. That point where you actually need to translate it into an official resume entry that is specific to a job, you can spend some time editing it at that point, right? But at least you have that information in your kitchen sink resume. So that's the goal, is to have that information at your fingertips for the unexpected opportunity. So,
And oh, sorry. And back that resume up in several places.
absolutely, yeah, you don't want to ever lose that. And actually, to that point, you probably want to do something like keeping that in kind of resume language, like maybe on that monthly basis, translating that to a new LinkedIn entry, maybe once a quarter. So maybe you don't have to edit your language, except for that quarterly LinkedIn update. So you're constantly refreshing things, to your kind of public facing version of your kitchen sink resume, which is LinkedIn.
So, do I go in private mode on LinkedIn when I'm making these updates or just leave it for the world to see? Oh, congratulations, you changed something.
Yeah, I think it's just polite for your network to not have them notified of updates that you make to your resume. I mean, if you want to announce like a major job title change, like if you got promoted, to a senior version, or if you're actually changing like a major job role within the organization that you have, and you kind of want your network to know about that. I mean, that's a good way to keep in touch with your network, right? See who's paying attention or who actually sees those updates. Then that's a good time. But having like a milestone in a project that you hit, with a measurable output, like not everybody in your network needs to see that. That's probably only important to recruiters, and they're going to find your resume based on keywords and searches, not based on being in your network. So,
Right.
yeah.
And speaking of, you know, announcements on LinkedIn, if you haven't seen John's LinkedIn about being the owner of the John White School of Mentoring, he absolutely is. And if you haven't signed up, send that tweet out to @NerdJourney today for pricing and packaging, and I'll make sure that you get some of John's time to make your career even better.
Man, oh man, I I can imagine that leading to disappointment so very very quickly. So another point here about keeping things up to date. I think another thing that you probably need to keep up to date is what it is that you want in a work environment and a company that you want to work for. Right. So this isn't exactly resume and it's not public facing. It's more of an internal introspection. Um, for example, I've said this probably a bunch of times on the podcast, but I want a work environment where there's smart people who think differently than I think, right? So I can get different perspectives. I want an employer with a continuing focus on the long-term best interests of the employee, and have that reflected in a learning environment and having a healthy career trajectory, good management oversight, encouraging management, and then compelling solutions to business problems. Being a pre-sales technical engineer, right? So you always want interesting products and products that customers are interested in. So that's kind of my list of things that I want. And only one of those was actually role related. So probably I could find like a compelling non-role related, something that's not immediately related to my job that had, two of those, the other two things, that maybe I found extremely interesting. So, and I would, maybe take a healthy look at that. So, again, what's important is decide what it is that you're looking for. And you don't need to be looking. It's just, you know, what is the metric that you're using to decide whether, the organization that you're at is the organization that you want to be. And then if you had to improve something, what were the things that you would need to improve? And if you really enjoy working at the company that you're working at or the organization that you're at, what are the things that you enjoy about that? Like, just make sure that you have like a concrete example of, something that makes you happy about that place, because that's a descriptor that, if you ever have to leave, is something that you can say, oh, I'm looking for this. I enjoyed it about, organization A. So when I, am evaluating organizations B, C, and D, one of the things that I'm evaluating them by are, this thing that I really enjoyed about organization A. Be that the amount of, for some people, it's the amount of socialization that you do with your coworkers outside of the organization. If you really, really enjoy that, and you're evaluating other organizations and they don't seem to do that, then maybe that's a strike against them. Again, for me, it was like, really smart people who, are willing to challenge me and think differently than I. And if I'm not finding that, then maybe I better find something else that I really enjoy about that place, right? So, um, you know, that's the kind of thinking that you need to do, and I think that we've talked about that before, right? Evaluating. I think it was when to say no. I think we talked about that. Um, when to say no to like a job offer or something like that.
Reasons to
Um,
Walk Away,
yeah,
episode 16 and 17.
man, Nick, you're a machine.
It also reminded me of the Area of Destiny episode where you decide what you really enjoy and the market for it and the intersection of those two. I think that framework's really good, John, and I think it could be a good way for you to also decide how you might want to spend some of your own time to fill skills gaps, learn new things, kind of like Amanda Blevins' advice that we talked about in a previous episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And some of the things that, you think about, if you think about things that you like about your company or organization, think about whether those are things that you could do without at a new organization if you were able to supplement it in your personal life. So, for example, that example I gave about, really enjoying socializing with your coworkers outside of the work environment, is that something that you could do without if you were able to supplement it with additional socialization outside of your work environment through maybe a club that you pick up, or a church organization, or some kind of hobby, right? So, is it really important that that's in your work environment? And sometimes the answer is yes, and that's fine. You just need to evaluate it, ask the question, and then get an answer, and then move on. So that's kind of my take on that. Make sure that you know what it is that you're looking for, or what it is that you like, in a really like intellectual way, as opposed to just a, overall I'm happy that I don't know why, right? So yeah, comparison to your current job and contrasting with your current job, you know. Um, so then, imagine, you have some kind of unexpected opportunity that pops up, that now you have a way to evaluate it, and the way that you can compare, to what it is that you like, and contrast um, with the things that you might or might not like about that. So anyway, like that's kind of, my exploration of that, knowing what it is that you want, what it is that you like and don't like about where you are now, and what you would like to see in a new place. So moving on from that, we have this point about making sure that you keep your network healthy. And when I say that, I mean your professional network, um, not your IT network. Although that's important too, especially if that's your job. But keeping your professional network healthy is really important, because um, these are the people who are going to have leads for you if you need to make a change, right? Or if they might know unexpected opportunities that you would be perfect for, that you don't have access to. They have access to it, and they think of you, right, because of your connection with them. So I think the how to have a healthy network is a whole separate topic probably in and of itself, but I kind of fall back on the manager tools um, motto and methodology, which is like add indiscriminately. Just grow your network. The people that you meet, add them to your network, and then keep that network refreshed. Check in with the people, your LinkedIn contacts, people that you've met in person that maybe aren't on LinkedIn but are connected to you through whatever professional resources that you met them through, and then um, give back to your network. Ask those people what you can do to help them. That's something most people think about a network as something that they lean on in times of need, but really what you need to do is be in a position to offer help to those people, even if it's just advice or a third party opinion on a situation that they're in, um, and referrals if you think of something that's important for them, because when you do need to lean on that network, you want to be known throughout that network as somebody who helps, right? And then people will fall all over themselves to help you, and that's, I think, an important lesson to learn.
And I will say that as your network grows, it's it's harder to keep in touch with everybody like you might want to, but you really do want to make sure that your sphere of influence is going into a lot of different groups outside of just your normal, maybe what you do today. Put that cast that net out into social circles and industries that maybe you're not a part of today, just to get better connected. The more people you can meet and help, as you said, the more it can potentially help you. So, we might think of it as kind of a symbiotic type relationship, but the more you are giving to other people out there and known as someone who is helpful, the better it's going to be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually take actual joy in helping people, or providing them, emotional support if that's what they need in that specific situation, or advice, or whatever it is. Like, hey, I can take a look at, the company I'm working at and see if we have that kind of opportunity here. And I really like your point about multiple different kinds of networks, right? If you only have a professional network of people that have your exact same job title, or, one type of job, say you're a networking professional and you only network with other networking professionals, that's a confusing example. Maybe I should have picked something different. But that there's a weakness there, right? You might have job skills that translate to something else, like security, or anything else, like things that you can't imagine, um, that somebody else thinks of and says, that's interesting. Uh, this guy has this suite of skills that he's mentioned to me and that have come up in discussions, and he's offered me advice, and now I know that there's this role that's opened up, and maybe, like, he or she would be perfect for it, but they just never might have thought of it. And so you just need to have like an extended multiple different kinds of networks, and multiple different levels as well, right? From executive to individual contributor to middle management, because all of those things help. It's a wider net. So that's kind of the summary there, right? Keep your network healthy. Um, so let's talk about the types of unexpected career opportunities that can come up. Some of them are positive, some of them not so much. The first one is kind of the kind of granddaddy, which is involuntary separation, or you got fired, or the company went out of business. All of those types of things. Like, you had a job and suddenly you don't. This is kind of the worst case scenario, and hopefully we don't spend a lot of time worrying about this, but being prepared for any kind of possibility is always the best kind of insurance, right? It's not like you need to have a job offer in your pocket all the time, but just being prepared with your resume ready to go, the types of places that you would like to work, ready to go, all that preparation that we just talked about. If an involuntary separation comes up, and the company says, hey, you have 30 days to find a new job inside our organization, here's a list. Or hey, your entire division's being laid off, there's no jobs inside the company that you qualify for, here's a separation, hopefully, and good luck. Again, worst case scenario. Well, you're ahead of the game, right? Because you have a healthy network, hopefully, and you're ready with the kitchen sink resume and the types of jobs that you'd like to apply for and the types of organizations that you'd like to work for. So you've done all this work ahead of time and you're ahead of the game. Like, as opposed to the people who don't have a resume ready, who don't know what they'd like to do or the kinds of places that they'd like to work. So you're going to be 12 hours, 48 hours ahead of all of those people in applying for jobs and grabbing the opportunities that are out there.
And you're going to
So
be less stressed out
much
because that's
less
just
stressed.
more pressure on you. You're in a bad situation already, and then your brain is Swiss cheese with all this emotional trauma. And you now have to remember, okay, what have I done in the last 3 years at this company that I can put on a resume that makes me marketable?
That that's it exactly in a nutshell, right? So because you've done all that work ahead of time, um, when you have a phone screen, you're going to be a lot less stressed, and not unstressed because it's a stressful situation, but imagine how much more stress you could be under if you had to scramble to get a resume together, if you had to scramble to figure out where it is that you would want to apply, the types of companies, the types of organizations, and how to filter out the ones that you wouldn't want to work for. So instead of shotgunning 40 applications out there, you were able to target like the 5 organizations and jobs that you actually wanted to do. So you're much more focused, and you have a lot more attention to spend on the 5 opportunities.
I want to add two things. So if you haven't listened to the John Hildebrand episodes, episode 37 and 38, go listen to those because he talks about an unexpected layoff and what happened to him, which is a fantastic story. And I would say, from a financial perspective, hopefully, no matter what job you have, you're living within your means and you have some savings built up to hopefully supplement if the worst happened and you lost your job for a little while.
Yeah, I think that maybe we missed that in the preparation, right? Like that's another point that you should keep in mind for preparation. Live within your means. Save up an emergency fund, that'll cover, I don't know, 9 months. Is that too much? A year of
3 to 6
expenses?
minimum,
Three
if
to
you
six
can.
minimum, yeah. And I know that's difficult, right? We're all under pressure, but you do the best you can to remove as much pressure as you can in the moment. And of course, that means paying down credit card bills. Hopefully, that's not something that's not a problem for you. And if it is, then you handle that problem first. But then you start saving up that emergency fund. So the second issue that is maybe a little bit related is something starts pushes you to start looking, and sometimes that's just the threat of an involuntary separation, right? You hear that the company's starting to be a little bit unstable, you hear that maybe things aren't going well, you hear it in the news, you see it in the results around you, and that starts to be a stressor. So you start to look around, and if you've done all this work, again, that looking around is going to be so much easier. You already know the types of organizations that you want to look at. You already know the types of positions that you want to evaluate. And again, it's that much easier. You can filter down from 40 applications to 5. And in the way that we're recommending that you do applications, where you create a customized resume for each position, I mean, 40 an application a day, that takes a long time. Yeah, believe me, I've done that. So that uh, idea of being pushed right in that direction, and it doesn't have to be that you have a looming threat of an involuntary separation. Sometimes things just go bad, like maybe you get a new manager that you don't get along with. Fortunately, I've never had to deal with that kind of thing. I've had kind of universally great managers at the position that I've had. But maybe you have a coworker that you're having problems dealing with. Maybe you have a subordinate that is a thorn in your side, or somebody on an extended team. If you're in a customer facing position, a customer that you just it's too painful to deal with, and for whatever reason, maybe it's your emotional state, maybe it's personal reasons. Any of these things can kind of push you to start looking for a different position, and so that's kind of the second case. And I think a lot of the things that we just talked about for involuntary separation are true. You're just a little bit less stressed, right? You don't have to leave your position before you start looking. You can be a little bit more selective. You can be a little bit less time sensitive because there's less financial pressure. Maybe there's more emotional pressure, but there's less financial pressure. And the best time to look is when you already have a position. So keep that in mind. And then the last case that we're probably going to spend the most time on is unsolicited contact. So that means like hopefully you're on LinkedIn and a recruiter reaches out to you. It's not something that you were looking for. Maybe you're happy with the position that you have, and somebody just reaches out and says, "Hey, what would it take for you to consider a different position? We have an exciting new company here that's doing exciting things, and we'd love you to join." Or usually it's, "We'd love you to apply for a position."
We have this 6-month contract that's perfect for you based on your LinkedIn profile.
It's monitoring printers and changing backup tapes. So there's a lot of bad LinkedIn position, unsolicited LinkedIn positions that come in. But maybe there's some nuggets of gold, in with the sand, right? And something interesting does come up. And again, you've done your work. You know the type of company that you'd be interested in working for, and you know the type of position. Um, Maybe not the specific title, but the type of, the general category of position, whether it's customer facing or not customer facing, whether it's educational or not educational, whether it's, you know, um, advocacy or not being an advocate. Maybe it's, a sales position or not a sales position. Like again, each of those categories you've kind of figured out. So, you've done that work ahead of time, and here you are, like something's come along, right? So now, comes in via email or whatever source. So the first question is, should you respond at all, right? And and I think like there's some work that you have to do there. Is it actually an interesting position, right? So you have all your criteria in front of you. Now you get to filter this opportunity by that criteria, and usually it's the vast majority of times it's no, right? That there's some just things that are critically important to you, like you want maybe you definitely want to work for a startup, or you definitely don't want to work for a startup, right? So when somebody contacts with you, with a job opportunity, there's an easy yes no based just on that. Maybe it's just not within your skill set. I don't know how many times I've gotten unsolicited opportunities that have to do with like security, and I'm thinking to myself, my background isn't in security. I don't have a security certification. I'm interested in maybe learning more about that field, but am I going to leave like a job that I really love for an industry that I don't really know? Like that, probably not. That it would have to be pretty compelling opportunity, right? So, it's just kind of an odd match, right? Like why are they contacting me about this? So, there's a lot of things that you need to take into account there. Why are they reaching out to you, right? Is it like a gross filter that like they just happen to hit like a keyword in your title or in your job description, and it's an obvious mismatch, and they're just not very good at their job of searching for qualified candidates, then it's a clear no. But for whatever reason, if it's a very, very good match and something that you're interested in, then you need to evaluate it at that point. You want to, there's a couple things I think that we have down in our notes. Be polite, be courteous. Generally I respond even if it's a no. There's different opinions on that. Hey, it's I'm not looking right now, and it seems to be outside of my area of expertise. I'll keep an eye out if there's anybody I think that might be a match. Something along those lines.
Yeah, because you never know when that person may come back to you. Oh, that person was really polite. I'm going to tell them about other things. And the next one could be something that's really interesting. And just because it's really interesting doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a job you would take. It's just, oh, you might be open to talking about it.
Right, right. Or that person is very clear about the types of things that they are looking for. Um, so maybe the next question is, well, what are you looking for? Because at my recruitment firm, we maintain relationships with a bunch of different positions, and if there's something specific that you're looking for, then maybe we do represent that. And if you know, then at least does it hurt to tell them? You're not saying, hey, I want to be exclusively represented by you as a recruiter. You're saying, well, these are the types of things that I'd probably be interested in. And they can decide, okay, well, we actually represent that kind of firm or not, right? And then they can tell you that. It's just clear and open communication. There's other types of sources for these types of opportunities as well, like a friend or your extended network, a peer in the industry. So maybe they reach out to you and say, hey, I remember you were talking about this, and I heard about this type of opportunity over here. Would you be interested in me putting you in touch with that person? And again, like, you have to do that same type of evaluation. Why are they reaching out to you? Is it somebody that you know well? Is it, sometimes people will leverage their extended network and say, hey, can you provide an introduction to this person, via LinkedIn? Because I have an exciting opportunity. So, you have to figure out, is that somebody that you actually know? Um, did somebody ask you to reach out to me? Like, you have to evaluate this contact, evaluate how well you know them, and just kind of make a judgment there, right? And sometimes you can just be open and honest and say, hey, I'm really only looking for, I'll really only listen for this kind of position, at this level of seniority, at this type of company. Do you think that it's something to do with one of those things? Why are you thinking that it might be interesting to me? And that will usually elicit, oh, it's somebody asked me to ask you, so actually I don't know any of those things. Well, you still might want to listen, but the chances like go way down, right?
So, fun story here, John. I had someone contact me a couple of years ago, or a few years ago now, and he was looking for someone to come and work for him.
Mm-hmm.
Guy I knew, and I told him I'd give him a call. I called him, and he was telling me about the job, and I don't think I know anybody. And by the end of the conversation, he's like, "Well, why don't you send me your resume?" All right. And it just, I mean, it was interesting enough, and
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting a job out of it,
Oh, nice.
a really good job. So sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. um the thing that I always like warn people about, because people don't know, is sometimes there's like really unscrupulous recruitment agency out there, and they'll tell you that they have a position to fill, that they've already vetted your LinkedIn profile, and you're kind of perfect, but they need a number of references from your network to kind of vouch for you, before they'll even talk about this, right? That is a scam, right? And let me tell you the kind of scam it is. It's a recruiter who's trying to fill out, like, expand like exponentially a network of people that they can represent. So they're just trying to mine uh, your network for people that you think are good, so that they can then turn around and represent those people, and then they'll do the same thing to those people. You tell me three people. So that's what that's about. If someone says, "Hey, I have the perfect opportunity for you," it's going to be probably a quite hefty raise, but I need three references before I'll even tell you about it. That's what the scam is, because it sounds like a scam, right? That's what the scam is. So just in case you've never run into that and nobody's ever told you.
That is the timeshare presentation of LinkedIn right there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And then, sometimes you get an in-person contact, right? You stumble across somebody at a conference or a networking event or what have you, and you have a conversation. And um, as they say, you're in a job interview and you don't even know that you're in a job interview. Um, Maybe you have a peer that's mentioned uh, you at the place where they're employed, or a friend of theirs, and and you actually get like somebody really close to you who really knows what you're doing and the kind of place that you would like to work, who happens to stumble across one of those things to a really good contact that they have. So those kinds of things do happen, and it's exactly why you have a strong professional network, right? So um, if you're giving to that network, then those people will think of you as well, right? So um, make sure that you are giving to your network so that your network gives back to you.
And if you're in person networking, don't forget to connect with that person on LinkedIn, just like John would. Even if
That's
you're
right.
sitting next to him on a plane, in an Uber, at a lunch table, it doesn't matter. Hey, is this you? Yep, absolutely.
Connect. Absolutely. I have
Smash that connect button.
I have no shame about reaching out and connecting to that person while I'm talking to them, or while I'm listening to them give a presentation that I think is interesting, or um, in any other situation. Actually, hey, yeah, that's somebody who's at the company that I work for, who's a VP who's never talked to me. I'll reach out and connect to them anyway. uh, yeah, absolutely. Always expand, and always, you never know what it is that you can do for that person. And you never know, um, maybe how they can help you. So, um, Nick, I think that's more time than we actually thought we were going to spend on that topic. It's the first part of this conversation. Anything pop in your mind before we get out of here? Close out.
No, sir. I think I'll just say to be continued. Just a reminder, we want people to subscribe and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. We want to know if we're being helpful and are always looking for interesting questions to ponder. We're collectively on Twitter at Nerd Journey.
All right. Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White at @BJourneyman, for Nick Cordy at @NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.